From the Edge of the Web studios, here's what we're looking at this week.
Alrighty, so welcome back to the Site Strategics Digital Marketing Desk. This is the bonus news podcast and video for Edge of the Web Radio, episode 353, and I'm your host, Aaron Sparks. Joining me this week to take on the digital marketing news in the SEO, SEM realm is Bill Sebald. So let's take a look at our first article. First article coming from The Verge. Check this headline out. Google Meet, Microsoft Teams and WebEx are collecting more customer data than they appear to be. Consumer reports have actually analyzed the privacy policy of Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, and WebEx and discovered they may be collecting more data than people actually realize. So here's the deal, is that Consumer Reports, and it's a fair magazine, absolutely. They're not saying that these apps are actually unsafe at all. Indeed, a separate Mozilla report found that nearly every major video conferencing app meets the basic security standards. But by agreeing to the privacy policies of these services, you are giving companies like Google and Microsoft access to plenty of personal data. According to the report, all three companies reserve the right to collect information from your calls, including how long a call lasts, who's participating in the call, and the IP addresses of everyone taking part. So as the world actually is more reliant on all of these platforms, people have actually started to scrutinize the security measures and privacy policies. And we did certainly reference there was a Zoom update. There was an alarming security hole in Zoom that they patched here over the last couple of weeks, leading to a host of Zoom bombing and other concerns. So, Bill, you guys are working remote and have been for a good long while. What's your take? What's your platform of preference first? But along with this, what's your take on the reliance on these conference tools and potential privacy issues there?
We actually just switched to Zoom. We were using a different one. We were using Uber Conference.
Yeah.
And when all this was going down and everybody started talking about Zoom, I said, well, we've used it with clients when clients have set it up. So we said, well, we'll give it a shot. And we kind of fell in love with it. We were like, this is pretty awesome. Zoom is fun. And then we got our first Zoom bombing, right? Where all of a sudden a telemarketer or robocaller popped into our meeting and tried to sell us some crap.
No way.
So it definitely happened. Yeah. But I actually really like Zoom. We're doing Zoom now. I think it's a great platform.
Yeah.
Plus, it's really interesting.
You can change those backgrounds, right?
Oh, all day long. That's just all we do all day is put in new backgrounds. I mean, that is the most fun.
It is Star Wars Day. Happy July, May 4th to you. May the 4th be with you. I don't know. Yeah. I'm wishful thinking for July 4th that we're actually going to have fireworks. But I had a scout conference where the scout leader actually had himself in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon shooting TIE fighters behind him. And my God, I was jealous.
Yeah, I'll be doing that as soon as we get off.
I'll send it to you. I found it as soon. So, I mean, from a privacy issue, I mean, we certainly have been through the gauntlet of privacy issues when it comes down to Facebook and different privacy settings and a lot of data released for sales and marketing. These video platforms, have they really gone that far to be able to protect us? Or, I mean, all of a sudden, there is probably a tenfold explosion of users on Zoom. Are they ready for this? And are we ready for our privacy possibly being pirated?
Yeah, I sometimes feel like we have a funny way of thinking. We being, general people have a funny way of thinking about privacy in these kind of situations. Mm-hmm. Like we saw what happened with Facebook. We know about GDPR and all the things in California that are being done. But I still don't read the fine print. I kind of wait till somebody says, hey, there's a problem in the fine print. So I read the same article as well. And I guess these platforms, the Googles and Microsofts, like they maybe weren't as invasive in as far as what data it was sending over. But, right. I guess I sometimes look at it and go, well, how big a deal is it that they're sending information about how long my meeting is? And, they want to know, they want to have those kind of user statistics. Mm-hmm. So I balance, like, am I giving up really important privacy for the convenience of this amazing tool? And should I continue to do that for the convenience of the tool? Or is there something dangerous that I'm not seeing that they can get with that?
Right.
So
no, exactly.
Sort of in the middle.
Yeah. No, I would agree with you. And on top of that, I think we're in the era of acceptable losses or whatever we want to call it. I mean, your IP is your IP. what harm is that? I mean, we all understand IPs, but in the realm of video conferencing, that's some data that they actually need to use to be able to deliver better quality connectivity, right? I mean, some of this data is literally logistical data, but at the same time, if we're in a commerce realm, an online commerce realm, I think part of we should expect for some user data to be part of our tailwind that these applications are looking to be able to mine and be able to get hold of. I think that's kind of part of our realm now, don't you think?
Yeah, I do, and I think it should be within reason, but somebody has to sort of define what the reason is.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that they have taken from, the whole thing with Facebook, I definitely think that was a little bit too invasive.
Sure.
But I don't know. Some of the stuff that I was reading in this article doesn't sound so bad. The problem with Zoom evidently being able to get hacked, and then, now you're leaking like HIPAA data and things if you're doing teledoc or all those different things, like that's big. Yep. That's a big problem. I get that. But yeah. Who's to say where the line is? I guess everybody's just going to sort of develop their own line, and then we'll see where this all shakes out.
Yeah, and if you're doing that type of teleservice, I wouldn't be recommending Zoom for those. These kind of common platforms, there should be niche platforms that are much more secure than a common platform like WebEx or Zoom or Uber Conference for that matter. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there that wouldn't pass grade if you had to take it down to a legal protection standpoint. I think that's just part of the realm we're in. Thank God this stuff was here to begin with, right?
Right. You know what I ask all the time? What the hell happened to Skype? Where's Skype right now? Isn't Skype going, hey, this is our time to shine? What happened?
I tell you
Where
what.
did the Zoom company come from?
Zoom trounced Skype several years ago when Microsoft bought Skype. They actually reduced their audio quality and their video quality at the same time. As soon as Microsoft bought them, everything just went down the hole, so to speak. And Zoom was right there to be able to pick up all that quality, all the people that are looking for that quality. So we've been broadcasting on Zoom for well over 3 years now, and never looked back. And that was a fortune because we were using Skype beforehand. It got clunky real quick.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yep. And then they have Microsoft Teams. So maybe it just kind of evolved and grew up into something a little bit better. All right. So moving on, something that is not crawling slow is Google. There was a bit of a post over at Barry Schwartz Search Engine Roundtable. Google says, no, we have not slowed crawling because of COVID-19. Barry's mentioned this a couple times. He's actually had to post a couple times here over recent years. But Deepak Mankani actually inquired with Google Webmasters Control, just for the confirmation, has Google reduced the crawling rate considering the reduced searches for certain businesses, or has Google's crawling process not been impacted at all? And John Moo pretty much just said, no, not really. And he also said this a few times earlier, a few weeks back. So he's literally continually having to let people know that they're not adjusting the crawl based on situational scenarios that we find ourselves in. That's part of Google's processing. That's part of their strength, is to be able to crawl as fast as they can and be able to parse that data and be able to understand and bring back that content quickly. We have talked about resource changes, and Google's looking for the ability to not spend as many resources to be able to crawl slower sites. And I mean, we talked last week about the theory of faster sites are actually able to take a little bit of load off of the bot. But literally, John literally tweeted out to someone who's asking about throttling, nope, computers seem to be unaffected by this virus. All right, so Bill, I mean, you're certainly in the SEO game. Is this just people trolling to see whether or not they can get a bite from John, or what?
I don't know. I don't know why they think things are going, why they think crawling is slower. I don't know what they're looking at. But as soon as I read it, I said, well, Google does pay attention to the kind of load that servers can get, especially in peak seasons for certain companies. So our e-com sites that we're working with, are mostly doing pretty well at the time. So if they're getting a lot more traffic than they usually get, theoretically, Google comes in and says, well, we can't hit this too hard. We got to slow down on the crawling. It's already showing signs of, heavy usage. So we'll go a little slower now. I mean, that happens all the time in Q4 for the holidays.
Sure.
That's what I suspect might be happening here if people are noticing slowdown. I wouldn't think that Google would say, hey, let's slow down anything.
Right now.
Why? Yeah.
Conversely, I mean, if they're trying to pay attention to all these signals of relevancy that are coming up around COVID-oriented news information, I mean, they got to pick up the speed, actually. They've got to be scrutinizing this content even more. So, oddly enough, people are always trying to ring that bell. And all things being equal, that's their discretion too, right?
Sure.
So anyway, it's not really important, guys. Why pay attention to it? All right, so last article here by Ginny Marvin over at Search Engine Land. Have we hit bottom yet? What new earnings reports say about COVID's impact on digital advertising? The hit in mid-March was sudden and dramatic, but there appear to be signs, including from media buyers, that the worst is actually over. The statements come from each company's formal quarterly press releases or earnings calls for the period ending March 31st, 2020. They reflect the sudden impact of COVID-19 on their ad businesses in the final weeks of the quarter, dulling what had been a strong start of the year. So there's a number of different businesses, for example, Facebook, Google Alphabet, Twitter, Snap, Microsoft. They're all signifying reduction of earnings there. The statements actually come from a good number of companies, not only these top ones. Direct response was a buffer, so to speak, with a feast and famine nature of the crisis. Many companies saw demand skyrocket for those who continue to see ROI from the performance campaigns held. They held the actual course and increased ad spend. So for some of these channels, you better believe they skyrocketed. But by and large, we're seeing quite a shift in ad budget applications. So, Bill, you run an agency over there. What have you seen from these changes, or have you witnessed sizable changes as it applies to ad spend?
Oh, certainly. Yeah. I mean, we have some clients who are in spaces that were hit really, really hard, and they just had to slow down their advertising. Yeah, I mean, we've had one or two that have had to stop the advertising altogether until things change.
Yep, same here. Same here.
Yeah, sometimes they have issues getting product. Sometimes they have issues, just with a million other things. You know what it's like.
Oh yeah.
So definitely have seen a slowdown. So I'm not surprised to see, all the platforms, all the companies talking about that. I hope we hit bottom. I hope this is, I hope we're at the point where it can only go up from here. So
yeah, you and us, but as well. But I guess the part of this article that was really inspiring was further on down. Regardless of spending changes, 73% of advertisers said that they are modifying or developing new creative assets. Of those who are updating creative, 58% said they plan to mention coronavirus, COVID, or some way reflect the crisis in their ads. And advertisers don't want to be tone deaf, but it begs the question of whether consumers will be corona weary or even corona blind in an inundation of ads. I mean, you saw the pivot here, and it happened maybe about 3 weeks ago. All of a sudden, almost every ad that's hitting TV had some sort of corona tie to it, and the ads, I mean, are across the entire internet spectrum, and for a particular. For particular goals, absolutely, that's fantastic. But can we lean too far into that? That's the question as well. So what do you think, Bill?
We can definitely lean too far into it. We're marketers. We tend to not see when it's time to stop sometimes on certain topics. But I had the same observation as you. I mean, as soon as it happened, a couple early advertisers were mentioning it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I've written about this too. Some rubbed me the wrong way. It was like, don't jump onto this like it's a wagon for you to ride to your virtue signaling. But the last couple, it's been really like, all right, this is comfortable. We're acknowledging what's really going on, and we're talking openly about it.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm ready for us to stop talking about it. So it's almost like every time I hear it, it's like, oh man, we're still in this. I know it. I don't know that I still want to be reminded about it from our marketing, unless you just have to be. Right. So I hope we get to a point where we don't use it as a tactic unless it's absolutely necessary to talk about. But if other people, 70% want to have that sort of dialogue about COVID and have that in their ads, then who am I to say any differently? But I'm getting a little.
Oh my gosh,
I'm getting really antsy.
I would agree with you completely. And the worst ads out there are those bloody face mask ads. They are everywhere, and those things, they're not even they're like waiting until the end of July into August for delivery. Not that I've actually clicked and pursued that, but why and now you can get your logos emblazoned on these face masks. That's too far. I mean, come on. If we're actually getting into the place where you're having face mask swag, right?
Yeah.
What? Why?
I'm in.
Oh, you're in, huh?
I'm in.
You just want to edge Facebook.
Big Edge logo.
There we go. Now,
I mean, I suspect at some point we're all going to be wearing face masks and we won't be thinking too much about what's going on. And then maybe it's time to have a little fun with your face mask.
absolutely.
I can see it then. There's more important things going on right now.
Yep, you better believe it. Better believe it. All right. Well, I mean, everybody, enough's enough. Come on, pull back on the ads a little bit. Let's give ourselves some breathing room. No pun intended. All right. So for that, let's put to bed the news of the week, and let's jump into Google updates real quick. I want to actually cover this on May 4th, our Star Wars Day here. We do want to have a look at some of the Google algorithm changes that have happened, and we try to dive in there when we're seeing a little bit of a bump. I mean, Barry's always in that space, giving us an update of what the chatter's looking like. The major reason for Google algorithm updates, I mean, becoming such a trending keyword is due to the fact that there's so much uncertainty right now when every rollout of update happens. So we just don't know, and we've seen such a wake of changes here over the last few months. Google rolls out hundreds of core updates on a regular basis, and they announce very few. So they have, of course, not announced anything here recently. But Barry Schwartz did actually point out that he's seen some flutters here on April 28th and 29th of last month here. If you're seeing massive traffic drops or keyword position decreasing, I suggest that you kind of hold on and don't. You can certainly not. You can certainly make some changes, but hold on to some of those changes at this point because you're certainly wanting to be able to respond to things, but at the same time, it could just be so sporadic right now. So I just want to run through some quick numbers here from Search Engine Marketing. I'm sorry, SEMrush. SEMrush has a little bit of a pop here at the end of April, at the beginning of May, but for the most part, very low from a velocity, or I should say a high. I should say a high. What am I trying to say? Volatility rate. There we go. Had to get it out there. Same thing applies with Moz. Moz is pretty steady at 83 degrees podcast, and 83 degrees. Actually, that's the wrong chart on the screen. We got to grab that. I think I posted the wrong chart. Sorry, but Cognitive certainly does show a pretty sizable change here in just recent days. And finally, Rank Ranger is really showing a focus on the May 2nd, April 3rd breakdown. Here's the deal is that in Rank Ranger, they also update us on different search engine metrics in there. And inside that, something that really popped out to us was the related questions area there. It actually is I wouldn't say skyrocketing, but it did jump about 4 points in percentage of visibility here from the end of last month into now. So more and more related questions are actually happening there, and people also ask questions, I should say. So are the SERPs changing to be able to accommodate more suggestive type of content? I think maybe that's what we're seeing here. And the search engine result pages are certainly changing right now. So for anybody who's listening here, if your search rankings are changing, you could very well be getting pushed out of the way because Google is certainly changing the GUI of what they're displaying. So, Bill, that was a long gauntlet there. I really do appreciate you waiting on this. But give us your thoughts and feedback of what you're seeing in search results here on a regular basis. Is there something to be concerned about? What's your take?
I think you hit it on the head, Aaron. I mean, we've seen this forever. We've seen Google we used to have the Google dance as a term for fluctuation. And that's just the way Google works. And there's days you look in, you're like, what the hell happened on these 3 days? You don't know. Nope. Something happened. Google changed something. Maybe data's taking some time to go through different data centers. I don't know what it is. And love Barry for being the one out there collecting all this data. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to see it. And I would never want to do what Barry does. So I'm glad he's around, but I'd like to see it. And then I go, okay, let me peek in and see how this, might be impacting me. And it gives me a starting point if I see a problem. Mm-hmm. But I would rather see some of these. And here's another thing I think it's really interesting. If you have all of these different tools, the SERP metrics, Algoroo, Rank Ranger, you showed a couple SEMrush.
Yep.
I think it's really fascinating to see the difference between what they see, because each one of those platforms, I guess they're taking a giant sample of different kinds of sites and they're checking the rankings on them.
Right.
So the group that Moz has picked versus the group that SEMrush has picked, that really goes to show how different segments of the web are, because I'm sure they didn't pick the same things. I'm sure they're not aware of what each other have picked for the forecast tools.
Nope,
but
absolutely.
I think that's pretty interesting.
It is cool. Yeah, and they also deep dive into different industries as well. So if you look at SEMrush, forgive me, they actually unpack different industries. So you can actually go a little bit further in there and see, okay, what's really happening? Because a general industry overarching algorithm volatility, you're never going to see things that directly affect you. And some of these tools really do get it right. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say the data you were showing, was it from Rank Ranger, showing the questions going up?
Yep. The
search result features, I want to see more about that. I want to see when certain search result features are starting to make a bigger play. Mm-hmm. I think that kind of data is really important. I'm not sure how many of the tools are actually doing it with features, but
they're starting to. I think Rank Ranger actually is far ahead because they look at the video carousel, they look at top stories, they look at a number of pieces, even HTTPS sites, and a continued point where we can finally say that almost all the sites out there are secure, but they actually pay attention to a number of key things. And it's interesting enough to be able to see some of those shifts. But I would love to see if they can actually even look at that per industry, just like SEMrush does. But hey, we're not doing those tool developments. They are.
Yeah, I would love that too. That would be amazing.
Yeah, really would. Well, speaking of a tool, we do want to talk about Ahrefs. They're a fantastic continued sponsor of the show. We thank them very much for their sponsorship. If you haven't checked out Ahrefs, go have a look at them. They certainly give you a great way to analyze your competition. It shows you how your competitors are actually getting their traffic from Google and why. And you can see all the pages and their content as well as the keywords that they rank for. With that, you can pull that data down and be able to start strategizing for yourself to be able to eat their lunch, alternatively. So if you haven't checked it out, go over to ahrefs.com. That's ahrefs.com. I think they have a 7-day package for $7 only. And you can see all their data, all their tools, especially their audit tools, which are fantastic. I got to say, from a technical SEO standpoint, this is one of the best tools on the market that I've used. So check it out over at ahrefs.com. You'll swim in great data just like we do over here at the shop. All right, that's it for Edge News this week. Be sure to check out the full interview with Bill Sebald linked in this podcast. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel when we go live for our next show, so you can jump in and comment as well. Let us know how we're doing over at edgeofthewebradio.com. Take our listeners' poll. So from all of us over at Edge of the Web, thanks so much for listening, and be sure to jump into this next interview with Bill. Do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. Bye-bye.